Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to prepare yourself. This is 600 feet of drainage tile. This is 200 feet of Schedule 44-inch pipe. This is like $800 worth of random plumbing fittings. And this is a young man with almost no plumbing experience who is going to attempt to plumb my house. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 100% restoration and remodel of my great-great-grandfather's $7,000 mansion. So for today's project, we are going to be working down in the basement. As we can see right now, we got a little bit of rain last night, so our ramp is a little bit muddy, so we are going to have to use the ladder going down into the basement, which is a little sketchy. Okay, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall. Welcome to the basement. Now before we get started, this house is over 100 years old, and 100-year-old houses with basements all have one thing in common. They're wet, they stink, and they are musty. And the reason for this is, back then when they built houses and dug basements, they would simply just dig a hole, they would pour concrete in the bottom, they would pour their concrete walls, and then they would leave it. They did nothing to try to get water away from the structure that they just built. So once cracks eventually formed in the concrete, water would find its way in and it would make it wet, which would make the air musty and damp, and it would cause things to stink. So today we are going to be attempting to install a perimeter drain around the basement so that way we can remove any groundwater coming from beneath. And then in case water gets into the basement, we are going to be installing a floor drain in the utility room. We are going to be installing a floor drain over here. We are going to be installing a floor drain over there. And we are going to be installing a floor drain over here. And I guess while we're at it, if we have time, we're also gonna install a sump pump. We're gonna put in a radon mitigation system, and we are gonna rough in the rest of the septic lines for the house. I have been looking forward to this project for a very, very long time. When we started in the basement, we knew we wanted to build water mitigation systems and a radon mitigation system. But upon breaking up some concrete and discovering that the house did not have a footer underneath of its foundation walls, we had to pour a footer. So we had to chunk out little spots underneath of the foundation, build rebar structures underneath, pour concrete, work our way all the way around the basement. Once we got that done, we discovered the old electrical supply coming into the house was in the way of where we needed to work. So we had to make a new trench through the driveway and through the yard, bring in electricity in a new spot in the house. Once we got that done, then we had to dig beside the house with the skid loader, build a ramp down to expose the side of the foundation wall. We cut a hole through the foundation wall. With that being done, then we were able to bring a dingo inside of the basement. We ripped up all the old concrete. We lowered the soil grade underneath of the concrete, and then we brought in rock to bring it back up. So now we had a permeable surface underneath of our going to be concrete floor, so that way water could run through it and radon could get sucked through it. So we've been working on this basement project for quite a while, which is why I am so excited for today's project. And like I said, I have almost next to no plumbing experience. I actually have zero plumbing experience doing things by myself. But here's the good news. We have YouTube that can teach us. I have a friend who's a plumber, and I have a friend who is a tile guy. So between those three resources, we should be able to get everything figured out. So first things first, we need to pour some more concrete. We currently have a footer around most of the basement, but we do have a couple spots just like this one where we need to do our last couple pours. Justin and Roman are gonna get started on that. While they're doing that, I have to run off to a farm meeting, and then hopefully by the time I get done with that farm meeting, Justin and Roman are done pouring the concrete, and then we will be able to get all the plumbing stuff started.
I can't leave Justin even for a second unintended. I go to set the drumsticks on the grill to cook for lunch, and here we are. He is done. Justin, good job. Now we have a little bit of washing to do for our equipment, so it's nice and clean for the from the concrete, and we'll get our drumsticks cooked, have some lunch, and lay some pipe. I guess while the food is cooking, Cole is gone and Justin is gonna come back. He needs to grab something at home. I can deliver some of the material in the basement that we're gonna be working with. Thank you. The lunch is over. We have all the material here. We have everybody back. And now we can start figuring out our little trench where we're gonna put our slotted drain pipe. This is what we're gonna have to do. Some places it's gonna be deeper, some of them shallower, but we need a little trench going around where we're gonna put our tile that's gonna be sloping away, making it slope out of the building, I think this way.
I am now back from the farm meeting. We are ready to start taking some of our materials and bring them down into the basement. So here's what we got for supplies. I picked up some perforated tile yesterday. You can see the little holes. So this is what's going to allow water into the pipe. This is going to be for the perimeter drain. I have a 250-foot roll right here, and then we did drag a 250-foot roll down there. We're going to need 166 feet of it, but we're going to need to do it twice because one is going to be for our drain and one is going to be for the radon system. So basically it came in 250-foot rolls, so we just got two of them. We'll have some extra, but we're going to end up using it later when we do the outside of the house, but that's another project for another day. And then this other roll, I got 100 foot of non-perforated, so this does not have holes in it. And this is what's going to take the water that the sump pump discharges. It's going to push it across the basement floor, and it's going to allow it to get out of the house. It doesn't have the holes in it because we want it to stay inside the pipe and leave and not drain back into the floor. And then all of our big pipes, these are schedule 40. So the schedule 40 is the thickness. So these are really thick, big PVC pipes. They are 4-inch. They are going to house all of the sewage for the house. So everything from all the toilets, bathrooms, sinks, you name it, that drop down underneath of the floor. Everything is going to flow through these, and then it'll end up flowing through the house right here over to where our septic tank is going to be in the future. So these are all the main lines that we have for everything. And then everything else that we have in here, this is all the fittings to divert things the way we need them to go. These are going to be some of the septic cleanout lines in case we ever have a plug under the floor. And then inside of this big black basin, this is where our sump pump is going to be located inside of. And then last but not least, we have this geotextile fabric. This is some non-woven stuff, and what this is going to do, it's going to wrap around our perforated pipe, our internal perimeter drainage, and it's going to wrap around this, and it's going to be able to prevent this soil and stuff from being able to get up inside of all these little holes and eventually plugging up the tile. So the very first thing we need to do with this perimeter drain line, and probably the most difficult part of the entire project, the drain line is going to start here. This is a solid wall and we have a footer underneath it, so we can't go on the other side of it. So our perimeter tile is going to start here, and it's going to run right along the edge of the footing all the way to that corner, to that corner. It's going to dip underneath of the wall right there where we have an opening, and it's going to continue to wrap all the way around to that corner through there, and underneath of this plywood is where it is going to discharge from the house. So with the perimeter tile, we need to make sure that it has a slight little downhill incline inside of it, so that way when water gets in there, it flows, and it will continue to flow all the way around until it gets to right here. So on that tripod, Roman has a laser set up, and that laser is putting a perfectly level line all the way around the entire basement. So first thing we needed to do is come to our start point. So Justin's gonna measure down, and we're gonna see where the laser line is on the tape measure. So we're at 49.5 inches. The second spot we need to measure is right here where we have a center footer. We ended up putting a pipe already that goes through the footer, and so now Justin's gonna measure again. And so this one is at 54 inches. If we don't block the laser, we're at 54 inches. So that means from over there to right here, we have the ability to drop almost 5 inches, 4.5 inches or so. So we're just trying to figure out the grade of every foot. How far do we need to drop down, so that way by the time we get here, the pipe stays at a consistent angle going all the way from there, snaking through all the way to here. And then once we get here, then we're gonna have to do the same thing from where our pipe that travels through the footer starts and then wraps around over to there. But this one should be pretty simple right here over there because it's pretty short distance. I say this is the most difficult part of it all. It's not really that hard. It's just something that we've never done before. So it's just a lot of head scratching and we really have to think about it. It's not automatic for us yet, but hopefully by the time we get done with this project, we'll have this grading thing down. Oh, look at this. This is a prime example of why we are putting in the drain. So our perimeter drain is actually going to literally be sitting in this trough, and you can see at the bottom of it, we have groundwater that's coming up. So if we build up more groundwater in the ground, that's gonna keep rising, and it'll work its way up into the basement. But if we have our drain right here, that groundwater will literally never get higher than it currently is right now. So therefore, we will not have to worry about anything coming up into the basement. We just tried doing our first little part of the drain. We measured that end and we measured this end, and we accidentally dug an inch too deep. And so we tried to backfill back in a little bit, but the only thing we have in here is this larger inch aggregate. And so when we're literally trying to play with 1/16 of an inch here, this is much too big. So I just ran out with the skid loader, and we have a pile of lime from when we built the bends from a couple years ago. So this is much finer. It's almost like sand. So we are going to be using this as our bottom layer when we actually dig too deep, and it should help us maintain our grade a lot better, which should make this job a lot easier.
Here in the final stretch to our end point, we have a little bit of a difficulty. That's because we burned out our elevation too soon. Basically, we went a little bit too steep, and now we're being basically halfway done, but we already burned out like 70% of our elevation, meaning that the rest of the trench has to be not as steep as it was. It would have to be basically barely steep. And it's real hard to do, but it's not going to be a major issue just because it's a 4-inch tile and we have all the 4 inches of water to fill up and flow out in order to make it work, which is going to work.
Justin and Roman have now made their way 2/3 around the basement. They've been doing an excellent job getting everything down to grade. They have made their way over to our first little pinch point, really probably the only pinch point in the basement. When we first got started in the basement, the very first thing we did is built this wall. And underneath of this wall, we have a little foundation stub wall, and then underneath that, we have a footer. Now, we knew we were gonna be running a tile through this footer back when we built it several months ago. So we have our 4-inch PVC pipe that passes through it. Now, our calculations maybe weren't perfect, and this is kind of what's going on right here, right now. I have an intercoupler, so on this end, we are going to have our perimeter drain tile, and on this end, we can stick it right inside of our 4-inch PVC pipe. Now, problem is, if we put this on right here, our tile is gonna have to come way out here. We're gonna have to remove all of this rock, and then we're not gonna be able to get into this corner where my feet are. So what we're gonna try to do instead is take some PVC pipe. We have 2 Street 45s right here, and 2 45s make a 90. So we're simply just gonna stick it on something like this, and then it's going to allow us to be able to put our intercoupler in right there. We'll put our tile on here. Then we should be able to get into the corner. And this is going to allow us to get around having to move all this extra rock. When we were removing some of the soil with the dingo, we accidentally got a little rambunctious through here, and I caught the edge of our 4-inch PVC pipe with the bucket, and I ripped it up a little bit, so our connection's not going to be the best. So Roman and I are going to try to chip back some of this concrete that's on top of it, just so we can get into where the pipe is solid and nice. and then we'll be able to get a better connection with our 2 Street 45s. And then honestly, that will also help be able to bring our pipe in a little bit more too. So we'll be able to get in a little tighter on this corner. Day number 1 of Operation DIY Perimeter Drain in the books. Imagine that you are a drain tile. You will start right here and you will work your way down in the bottom of this fabric up trench all the way underneath this wall. Once you're under the wall, then you're gonna pop out right over here and you are going to continue going around and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle all the way into this corner. Once you're in here, then you will drop right through the foundation wall or the footer. Boom, you'll pop out there and then you'll continue into this corner, and then we haven't dug this out yet, but then you'll end up right here, dead center of this, and then there will be another drain tile that'll take it way down to the open creek down there where it will run out to open daylight. Can we give a round of applause to Justin and Roman today, because they got a lot done. Not only did they get a footer poured right here, they also got a footer poured around the corner right there, and they got another one poured right there. And then the fact that they were able to get the measurement for the starting point and the measurement for the ending point on the other side, then they were able to dig everything down, and they have everything running on a nice grade to be able to get the water to over here. So now we honestly have the easy part left, which is going from right here. You can see the pipe that sticks through the footer. We just need to go from there. We'll snake through, and then we just got to go over to that opening. Now over on this side, since we have a concrete spot that it had to go to, we were limited by the height over there to the height over here. So that's why we had to go with a 0.5% of grade. Ideally, we would have liked to go with a 1% grade, because that's generally what they recommend for plumbing, or that is code in certain areas. That is definitely what we will be doing with the rest of the plumbing that we're doing in here. But since we couldn't go any deeper there, well, we would not have wanted to go any deeper there in the first place, but there's a big rock right underneath that mat, so we physically could not go any deeper if we wanted to. And then over at this end, since we poured this footer wall a long time ago, we have our PVC pipe height set, so we could not go any lower with that if we wanted to, unless we wanted to do some tearing out of the wall there, which we did not want to do. So we ended up having, I believe it's almost a 4-inch drop from that side of the house over to this side of the house, which brings us up to about a 1/16 of an inch drop per foot. So when it goes a foot forward, it drops a 1/16 of an inch down. So it has a slight tilt, which is half of the grade that is technically supposed to be. But the good news is I did do some consulting with Dave, our tile guy, and he said the beautiful thing about 4-inch tile is as long as we have it level, water will still flow through it, because once it starts to fill up on the inside a little bit, it will start to make its way where it's supposed to go. So with a 1/16 inch grade inside of our pipe, the water is going to leave. We are not going to have stagnant water underneath of the house. It may just move just a hair bit slower than if it were a 1% grade. But also, beautiful thing is, water, when it gets underneath of the floor and starts hitting that tile, it's just going to be a slow little trickle coming into there. So the pipe, 4-inch pipe, has a ton of water capacity. We're not even going to be filling that thing up that full, even at its absolute fullest. So everything is going to work great. And call it overkill, I know, but we also are going to have a sump pit. This is going to be located in the corner over here. It's going to be about 12 inches below our interior perimeter tile. So if the sump pump were to quit for some reason, then the tile would take over. Otherwise, the sump pump should be able to keep the water a foot below our tile line even. But if that were to quit, then we'd have the interior drainage tile that we are installing now. While we have the floor all tore apart, we may not need the interior drainage tile, but while we're this far with it, it's just a little bit more work, and it is a whole lot more peace of mind. And honestly, when we get to the outside of the house, we're going to be putting one on the outside of the house too. As you can tell, I don't like squeaky floors, and I don't like water in the house. Hence the interior perimeter tile, a sump pump, and then an exterior perimeter tile. And I guess while I'm in here, I should mention this fabric that we are putting down. Now, I may be DIYing this project, but I'm not doing a blind DIY, meaning I am doing a lot of research ahead of time so that way I know how to actually build it, I know what to expect, I know what not to do, and one of the big resources that I have leaned on when it comes to this interior French drain is a YouTube channel called French Drain Man. Now, French Drain Man goes around and he is a professional French drain installer, and they do some incredible work, and he makes a lot of educational videos on how to build these things and why they do certain things that they do. So I've consumed probably like 4 hours of his content, so I pretty much am copying exactly what he recommends to do for this interior perimeter drain. So one of the things that he harks on to have a French drain that lasts forever is to have this non-woven geotextile fabric. And when you get it, I have a 300-foot roll right here, but you want to make sure that you get the stuff that filtrates. So this has a 5-star in the filtration, and then it has separation. So we want to make sure it has separation and that it has filtration. Obviously, number one, filtration. We want the water to be able to get inside of it. So like right here, we have a little pedal or a little wet spot, and when I push, you can see that water shoot right through, and then when I lift up, it goes right back out. We want that water to be able to get inside of there, so that way it can actually get in our French drain, because if it doesn't get in our French drain, then we're doing all this work for nothing, because the water's not going to be able to get in, it's not going to be able to leave. We just bought a bunch of pipe and fabric and did all this work for nothing. So we want it to be able to filter. And then equally as important, at least to French Drain Man, is the separation. So what we're going to end up doing is taking our 4-inch perforated pipe and setting it at the bottom of this trench that we made. Then we are going to take some of our 1-inch aggregate, our 1-inch rock, and we're going to be putting it over the top and the sides of our pipe that is at the bottom of this fabric. And then we're going to end up taking the edges of the fabric, and we are going to end up wrapping it around our pipe rock mix. French Drain Man calls it a burrito wrap. Having this rock around our perforated pipe is always going to leave little air spaces in the rock, and that air space is going to allow water to be able to get into it, and then the water is going to be able to get in the holes of the pipe. If all the little air spaces between the rock were to get clogged up with soil, then water wouldn't be able to flow through them. Therefore, water would not be able to get into our pipe because it couldn't get through our rock soil mixture. So this is where our fabric comes into play. The fabric lets water go through it to get in, but when it comes to this soil, it will get caught up on the edge of the fabric. So the soil cannot get in, but the water can. Hence why we want separation. We want water to get in, but we want the soil to stay out. And then another little trick, we are going to be laying our pipe right on top of the ground. Well, obviously we'll have our fabric here, and then the pipe will be on the bottom. And the reason why we did that is we dug the edges just a little bit deeper than the center of the floor, and the center of the floor has all of this rock in it. So all of this has permeability. The water can flow right through it because all the little air spaces, remember? So if our drain is the lowest point and it's along the edge, any water that were to get up in the middle will flow to the drain, and we will not have any standing water underneath of this rock where it will sit there and it will start to mildew, it'll start to smell, and then that could make a musty basement. Even though we have a dry basement, we still have water trapped underneath of the floor. So the idea is, if the pipe is sitting on the bottom of our trench and our trench is lower than the rest of the floor is, anything that would be over here will meander its way over to our pipe and will get taken away, and then everything will be nice and dry underneath the middle of the floor, and we won't have a stinky, musty smelling basement, which is what we want. So I would also like to give a big round of applause to French Drain Man and a big thank you, because without the knowledge that you put into your videos that you graciously shared with all of us, I would not know how to do any of this. So thank you.
So it cost me $2
Oh boy,
to
Roman's
save 32.
listening to business stuff. How do you pause that? Okay, there we go. Hey Roman, what are we doing next?
Well, we're waiting on you, so we decided to pour this real quick so we can start laying pipe.
There we have it. Look at that. We got our burrito wrap made. We do have some rock over it, so when we get everything done, it'll look basically just like this, so you won't be able to see the fabric sticking out at all. But we got everything through underneath of our wall, and then on the other side of the wall, we got it all laid in, everything burrito wrapped and covered, all the way back over to where we had our PVC pipe going through the floor. And look at this. You can't even tell anything was there. So now, all we need to do, finish digging this out right here, so that way we can get over to where it'll actually shoot through the wall, and then we'll be able to run the tile down outside. So I have a little bit of digging to do. While I'm doing that, Justin is going to be picking up this mud and rock, clay, whatever we have sitting on our footers. And Roman, what are you going to be doing?
Watching you guys. Hey, Cole, can I dig that corner actually?
That corner or that corner?
That corner.
Okay, you can do the perimeter thing, and then I guess I'm going into the other room. We have our sump pump pit right here. This is where it's going to sit, but we need to leave 5 inches on the back side because we're going to have our radon mitigation line going right back there, and then we're going to dig this part down probably about 20 inches or so. Okie dokie, we have our holes drilled in our sump basin, so that way when water builds up underground, it'll work its way through these holes, and then the sump pump will sit inside here. When the water gets in there, fills it up, then the sump pump will eject it out the side hole. We'll have a pipe here. We have a non-perforated pipe that we're going to be using to get all the water out through the sump pump, and then in case sump pump goes bad or doesn't turn on or something, and we get into a bunch of water issues, then we have our perimeter drain that'll take over. What we're doing is probably overkill, but we have the basement this tore up already, so just digging a little hole in the corner now is so much easier to install this than trying to do it in the future. So it's more of a, it's easy to put in now. If we use it, we use it. If we don't, we don't. But at least it's there. And in all honesty, this sump basin was $28, and we have 50 cents of fabric right there, and then whatever rock that we had to dig out and the time invested into doing that. So not the end of the world. A backup to a backup is always good, because the thing with the sump pump is, you usually don't know that yours is bad until you already have water in your basement. So if something goes on with this, then we also have our perimeter tile. All right, moment of truth. See if we can set this down in there. Get our fabric out of the way. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Alrighty, we got our sump pit in, everything is leveled out. We are at the depth that we need, so when we end up pouring our concrete is going to be right at this, and then when we have a lid on it, it'll just barely stick up above the floor. Took me about an hour and a half to do this, so while I was doing that, Justin got started doing some digging right here. So this is where our perimeter drain is going to go in right here. Once we get done underneath of the stairs, this is going to continue from here all the way under there, and it'll go around the corner about 5 feet to the right. And then Roman has been doing a bunch of digging in the corner. He had to go pretty deep over here, so he's been moving a lot, but he's got that all cut out, and now he's at the last little bit, and they're wrestling, I guess. It started to get really dark inside the basement. I guess we have another storm coming. This month we've got almost 5 inches of rain, which, to put it into perspective, last year we got 12 inches of rain during the entire crop growing season, and we've got 5 inches of rain here in like the last 10 days. And I don't know what's gonna come of this, so we may get a little more yet. And I don't know how well the camera can pick it up, but it is pouring a mile away. So now Justin and Roman are gonna finish this last little bit of digging that they have to do right here. And then I tossed down the non-perforated pipe This does not have holes in it, so it's non-perforated like this one. See all the little slots? This lets water seep into it, and this keeps water inside of it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this, and we are going to mount it right on the side of our sump pump, well, the sump pump pit. So this little part that sticks out right here, we're gonna be able to notch this out, then we're gonna put our 4-inch pipe in there, and then when we have our sump pump down in where the cinder block is, then the sump pump will pump into that non-perforated pipe, and that non-perforated pipe will connect from here over to where Justin is digging, and it's gonna have a negative slope, so that way, when the sump pump pumps, it'll pump the water into that, and then the water will stay in there, and then it'll just shoot right out of the house over there. For the past 2 hours while I've been digging this trench line, everything has been clay. Literally, this last shovelful right here, we have sand. I guess right at the end when you're tired, that's the best time to have it done. But we now have a trench made from our sump pump for our non-perforated line to go through. So when the sump pump drains, it'll drain into this line. It'll come to right here. And then once it's here, then it's gonna dip below our footer, and then it'll go out there where we're gonna make a tile line that's not there yet. It's gonna go to a creek that's about 100 yards away from here. Feels good to get this one done. Now I'm going to be completely honest, I really thought we were going to get all of this stuff installed today as well. We didn't even get close to getting that stuff done, but we did get a lot done. We got our entire perimeter drain in, all the way around the basement. We got our sump dug in, that is all filter fabric, that is all level, that is ready to go. We just need to get our hole cut in the sump now, and then we'll take our 4-inch non-perforated, and then we have our trench for it all made. Grade is nice and good. We'll be able to get all the water to flow out. Everything all the way to there from that corner. So all of that has the interior French drain going around. Everything was burrito wrapped. Roman and Justin got everything covered with rock. This is all good to go. So basically now we just have to go from right here over to that corner underneath of the ladder, and then we got to go around to the right just a little bit once we hit that back wall. But we do have some work we need to do back there before we can go all the way to the back. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna get this front part to grade, and then we will just stop our tile line right here, and then we will just put an intercoupler in our tile line, so when we get over here and get all the concrete stuff done and get all this dug out, then we can just connect to the tile, and then all of this will be done, so that way we can get this all covered up, and then we don't have to worry about accidentally disturbing something. And then we do need to get our non-perforated land side of this, and then get it all connected up to the part that is going to go outside, and then we will be ready to put in the rest of the plumbing stuff. So, holy cow, we got a lot of stuff done. We have a long way to go, but we eat the elephant one bite at a time. So we're now one step closer to having the house done. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, we gotta put in our radon mitigation system too.